One of the first cattle breeds to arrive on Australian shores has now been listed on an international rare foods register. The once popular dairy shorthorn has fallen out of favour here and in its home country of England. But as Kerry State reports, it's hoped the listing and growing concerns about food security will save the dual-purpose animal and other rare breeds from extinction.
There's a lot of history on these hills at Warragul, east of Melbourne. This cattle breed is one of the oldest in Australia, and it's been passing through the Clayton's dairy for almost a century.
They're an easy care breed. We have very few calving problems. We don't have any feed problems. And I just like them. I've always said that if I had to change the breed, I'd give away milking.
David Clayton has been farming dairy shorthorns for 50 years, remaining faithful to the breed when others have switched to the prolific milk machine, the Holstein Friesian.
I love breeding cattle. I like to see the improvements. We've got cows in the herd now giving well over 7,000 litres. The most we've ever had is 9,500 litres. When we first started herd testing in 1976, the herd averaged about 3,000 litres.
While his cattle have progressed, the number of dairy shorthorns in the world has gone steadily backwards. David Clayton is one of only a few farmers in Australia still milking these animals on a commercial scale. And in the UK, their country of origin, there are only around 300 purebred females.
The old dairy shorthorn is one of the great breeds of the world, I reckon. Unfortunately, it's dying out to what it used to be.
Food writer Cherry Ripe is hoping to bring attention to the demise of the once dominant domestic breed. After months of research, she's managed to get the dairy shorthorn listed on an international threatened foods register, known as the Ark of Taste.
Well, I had to go back to historical records. And luckily, my father was a cattle breeder, and his library contained the most extraordinarily old and wonderful reference books, including a herd book of Durham and Hereford cattle. Now, Durham was the original name for shorthorns. And in 1873, there were over 1,000 head of registered pedigree Durham cattle in New South Wales, and yet we're down to 200 breeding females.
There's only a very few of us in Australia, there's probably less than 12 that breed the dairy shorthorn on any type of scale.
Karen Doggett may be the president of the Dairy Shorthorns Association, but she was initially more interested in using the breed to improve her commercial Angus herd.
I went to look for a bull to put over my Angus herd to breed more milk into my herd for veal production. And then once I actually found a little bit more about the breed, and it's just, an amazing history goes with the breed, so that's really what really sold me on the breed.
They may be known as dairy shorthorns, but what originally made these cows stand out at shows and on farms was their versatility.
When they're younger, they're meant to be a beef type animal suitable for meat. And as they get older and they're feeding a calf, as this cow is here, they lean off and they become a more dairy animal. So they're completely dual purpose. They're suitable for meat and for milk.
Karen Doggett's purebreds are still standing out at shows. This mother and daughter are both champions. But the competition has thinned out, as what once made them popular is now putting people off.
We've lost a lot of the dual-purpose animals as people have gone more to specialisation. So they're specialising either, they're wanting the animal to be really high milk producer or a really high meat producer, and that dual-purpose animal's been lost in between.
Changes in production systems are also threatening several pig breeds.
If we lose the breeds, we can't get them back. Once they've become extinct, that's it. And given that we can't import pigs into Australia because of our regulations, what we've got here is all we've got to work with.
Bronwyn Cowan runs a rare breeds pig farm not far from David Clayton's Warragul Dairy. Here, darker colours are in and pink porkers out.
The beauty of the coloured pigs is once you get them out in the sun, they don't sunburn like a white or a pink pig does.
But few commercial farmers have seen the beauty of these British pigs in recent years. There are only 8 registered large black breeders in Australia and even fewer Tamworth producers.
When they started looking at intensive pig farming, they selected the breeds that would suit the system, and the coloured breeds in general will either stress or grow much slower, lay down a lot more fat, therefore they weren't seen as economically viable.
Another distinctive British breed being preserved on the Cowans property is the Wessex Saddleback.
It's a very important resource because in the UK they actually combine the Wessex and the Essex saddlebacks together, and in Australia we just have purebred Wessex, so we've actually got the only purebred Wessex in the world.
Australia was colonised by England, and so our colonial forebears brought with them European breeds of animals, particularly English breeds. And while these breeds might have fallen out of fashion in England, we haven't had those same economic pressures, to chase after subsidies. So our farmers have actually maintained this gene pool, an important gene pool of British agricultural biodiversity.
Like the dairy shorthorn, the Wessex Saddleback is also on the Ark of Taste list, a register created by the slow food movement that requires products to not only be rare, but also unique in taste, historically significant, and associated with a specific region.
It raises people's consciousness, not only about the flavour profiles between different breeds, but also the fact that we need to preserve these breeds.
Only 6 Australian products have made it onto the international list so far. Joining Wessex Saddlebacks and dairy shorthorns are bull boar sausages, bunya nuts and 2 types of honey. While it might seem like an odd mix, Terry Ripe says finding items that meet all the criteria isn't easy.
I mean, for instance, lots of people say, well, why can't you list Aboriginal foodstuffs or Indigenous foodstuffs? Well, almost none of them are endangered. I mean, I've consulted widely with people to try and find things. Then other people have suggested, I think, as the black hairy marron from Western Australia, but that is so endangered that fishing of it for human consumption is totally banned. So it has to be a food product that you can eat.
It's breakfast time at a Melbourne cafe. And on the menu this morning is Wessex Saddleback bacon.
In order to save them, you have to eat them. If you don't eat them, if they don't have a commercial use, then they will die out. So the secret for us with the Rare Breeds Trust is to try and find a commercial application for these breeds.
Fiona Chambers knows firsthand how profitability helps preserve.
Thanks.
Excellent. What have we got today?
A bit of everything.
As well as heading up the Rare Breeds Trust, she has the largest herd of Wessex Saddlebacks in the world, which she uses to bring home the bacon.
When we began breeding them in 1995, there were less than 50 purebreds globally. So they were really, really critically endangered, on the verge of extinction. So we started marketing the meat. The Rare Breeds Trust established a meat marketing scheme. So now there's probably something in the order of 300 purebred breeding sales, which is just huge growth.
While the future of the Wessex looks encouraging, the outlook for other domestic animals isn't as optimistic. A global United Nations report found 1 livestock breed is lost every month. And Fiona Chambers says most people have no idea many others are under threat.
The number of times people say to me, oh, they're not rare. There was a paddock full of those down the road just a couple of years ago. And you go, well, actually, it was probably 15 years ago. And there were a few then, but now they're almost gone.
I think if you narrow your food supply down to a very limited number of breeds within a type of animal, you are reducing your ability to cope with different changes in the future. And there is no guarantee that our world's going to stay exactly as it is now. Therefore, we need to keep as diverse a range of animals as we possibly can.
As for future generations of the dairy shorthorn, well, this loyal producer says the ruddy breed is worth milking.
We're getting over $300 for bull calves at the moment, around about a week old in the Warragul market. I don't know what the Frisians were making now, but they were making about $50 or $70.
And while David Clayton may be planning to retire, the dual-purpose animal has found some new fans, especially in Tasmania.
People are interested in providing their family with meat and milk. As people are sort of starting to become more aware of what they're eating, they want to become self-sufficient. So there's quite a little movement there of people who are getting into dairy shorthorns.
Breeders hope that means the historic animal that's been in decline won't disappear from our hillsides.